I love books. And I have as far back as I can remember, and that's probably not a huge shock to those of you who know that I just became an English teacher, but I have loved books as far back as I can remember. And if I go back to elementary school, the best day ever was when the Scholastic delivery came in, and you got those books. And I'm not the first teacher in my family. I'm fifth generation teacher on one side and sixth generation on the other side. So when I came home with that order form, it was like, Mom, can I get books? She was always like, get all the books. Get all the books, whatever you want. So the other kids are getting 2 or 3 books, and I was getting like boxes of books. Best day ever. It was awesome. Until middle school, I didn't really know what had happened. My parents kind of sheltered me from it, but my father got laid off. And my mom was still saying, yeah, you can get a book, but it wasn't all the books. It wasn't whatever you wanted. And I lost some of that magic until we go to Michigan on vacation. And my parents tell us, we found a new place we want to take you to. It's called a used bookstore. I'd never been to one of these before. And they brought all the books that I was tired of and didn't want to read anymore, and we gave them to the people, and they gave us credit, and then we got books super cheap. And they were books that you couldn't find at Scholastic. So I had a new best day ever. It was every year when we went on vacation to Michigan, and I got to go to that used bookstore and get all these new books, and I'd come home with boxes full of books. That was the best day ever. Shortly after I got divorced, I found myself in a similar position to where my mom had been when she could no longer just say yes to all the books. Because my kids love books too. And now as a recently divorced man who is paying child support, my kids would come home and they had that Scholastic thing. And I was like, one book. And it killed me inside to have to say no. So I'd started dating somebody. And she says, well, have you heard of the book thing? I'm like, no, but it sounds intriguing. Tell me about the book thing. So she throws me in the car on a Saturday, and we drive on down, and we go in, and we've brought some books that we don't want anymore. So I'm like, oh, it's like a used bookstore, right? So we give the guy the books, but he doesn't give us a credit slip or anything. And I'm like, okay. She's like, no, come on, come on. We go in, and it's this enormous warehouse of books down in Baltimore, but it's not very well organized. There's like the science fiction bookshelves, and that's the extent of the science fiction organization. And there's the fiction room, and it's like a room this big that's just fiction books, and that's as far as it's organized. There's bookshelves full of cookbooks, and there's bookshelves full of foreign language books, and just about everything you can imagine. There's bookshelves on top of bookshelves, and I'm looking through, and I'm seeing no prices. And the woman I'm dating says, don't worry about the prices. And so, I've got like 15, 20 books, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I can afford this. And I've grabbed some things for my kid, and I said, I can't afford these. And she said, you don't have to afford these. And she takes me over to the table. She says, how many books do you have? And I count them up. I said, I've got 25. And she writes down my name, and she writes 25, and she says, we can leave now because the books are free. And I had a new best day ever because I could bring my kids there, and I no longer had to say one book, or I no longer had to say no. So I've got these kids who love books. So the next weekend, I throw them in the car, and we go down, and they're in the children's section, which is all these boxes on the floor. And they say, well, how many can we get? And I say, you get whatever you want. So they're literally like a kid in a candy store, but it's a kid in a bookstore. It's even better. They're going through. My son's coming up to me. He's like 3, and he's like, can I get this? I say, sure. I didn't even look. It was a physics college textbook. I didn't care. They could get all the books. And we started going down like every other weekend, and they get books and books and books and books, and our house was filling up with books. We did this for like 2 years, and we had so many books, and it was delicious, but it was also starting to get a little out of control. And so I'm talking to my mom about it, and it's coming up on Halloween. And my mother reminds me that when I was younger, because I'd had so many books at one point that I'd outgrown, she had taken a bunch of them, and we'd given them away for Halloween. Now, I live in Elmwood. It's pretty close to the city. As a matter of fact, I'd say we're one of the first really nice suburban locations close to the city where the houses are really close together. So if you come to my neighborhood on Halloween, you will see minivans pull up and 10 kids get out and the minivan leaves. And then it comes back again like 15 minutes later and 10 more kids come out, because there are people who live in neighborhoods where they don't feel like they can trick or treat. They bring their kids to my neighborhood. So we had all of these books, and that year for Halloween, I just laid out tarps on the grass and filled them with all the children's books my kids didn't want anymore. And the kids would come up looking like kind of confused. They say, trick or treat? I say, take a book. And they would get so excited. And to this day, one of my favorite memories, there was a kid who had Harry Potter in one hand, and he had Percy Jackson in the other. And he was looking at the one and looking at the other and looking at one and looking at the other, and you could see the stress was palpable. And I just leaned over and I said, you can take both. And I will never forget the joy on his face. It gave me a new best day ever.